and I threatened to have her back on the air. I threatened her. I said, I'm going to get you on the air again, and I am. Melissa Mertz from the PIAA Board of Directors joins us. Brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Melissa, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you back on the air with us. We talked with you a couple of weeks ago, and at that time we were planning to move forward as originally planned for the fall sports schedule. For the most part, that decision affirmed yesterday. That was a lot of work went into that meeting, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, there was. A lot of work by the board and a lot of work by the staff. But, for our thinking is when it comes down to it, whatever we got to do to get kids playing sports was the driving theme behind everything. So everybody buckled down and put in all the effort we needed to put in. And so we feel pretty comfortable right now with what we put forward yesterday, and we'll stay in touch with the governor's office and Department of Health and, as we move forward through the next couple of weeks here. But right now, we're planning on moving forward. Yeah,
we were on the air with Eric Epler from Penn Live in the last half hour, and he was talking about the thing that surprised him most of all was the idea of flexibility in the start of the school season. Pretty much has to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And that's actually the biggest concern, the biggest pushback we were getting from some of the superintendents and principals of our member schools was just their sheer concern of starting school and sports at the same time, and the overwhelming task that they're tasked with right now with trying to make sure everything in their school buildings are safe and getting kids back into the academic classroom, and then also trying to pull off varsity sports, JV sports, junior high sports. So the fact that we've given them a regular plan, an alternative plan, and then they can even have like what we call a hybrid plan, I think has really removed a lot of the stress with school administrators.
Yeah, absolutely. Football is the sport we think and associate most as the biggest sport of the fall season, and rightly so. It does command a lot of attention, but those other sports are a big part of this equation too. Let's start with football and the various considerations that go into things such as extending the sideline boxes, who gets to talk to officials, who gets to be here or there in the press box, in the stands, all of that. And let's use that as sort of a model for how policies are developed.
Sure, yeah. A lot of that comes from is assisted by our National Federation group. The NFHS is actually based in Indianapolis. It's right next to the NCAA building. And they're, in essence, our parent organization. They establish the rules that we adopt for all of our high school sports, most of our high school sports. So a lot of guidelines were put out by them, like a return to competition guidelines on how we can put sports back together here for the high school season and still do our absolute best in, preventing the spread, maintaining social distance where we can. So a lot of those guidelines came from them. We modified some things, and then we put those through our own sport-specific steering committees. We have a steering committee comprised of every district for every sport that we sponsor a championship in. So then our football coaches and our football state interpreters and our football people look at it, kick it around, and then we put it in front of the board. So that's the typical process for pretty much everything that we put in place for the fall sports.
One of the interesting things to me looking at all of these fall sports and the way the committee put together for each of the sports a specific set of rules and guidelines is I think of cross country as one of the more difficult ones to figure out, because I don't think a lot of people realize how many people are involved, from runners to coaches to support personnel in your typical cross-country meet, and then you multiply that for championships and other invitational type of things. It is an enormous structure on any given, particularly Saturday that I'm thinking of when cross-country meets happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't get out to a lot of regular season meets, but I will tell you that our cross-country championships is like a diamond in the rough. I'm telling you, we bring in thousands and thousands of people to that event. Now, the good thing with cross-country is that it's outdoors and we can spread out. You got 3.2 miles to, put people out. But you're absolutely right. There's a lot of, between the clerk of course through all the officials that we need to be out on the course, just speaking for our event, it's a very large event for us. And it is. It's quite an undertaking that I think, like you said, a lot of people think, well, the kids just go out and run and come back.
No.
It's not always that easy. There's a lot behind the scenes on that event as well.
We talked with Eric Epler, and we've been noting Director Lombardi's comments as well about the spectators and how that is still a really difficult thing to interpret, just what PIAA is being told, and then for them to come up with the policy regarding it. How does that stand now? Do you think that there are going to have to be refinements or clarity offered to the PIAA in order to really nail it down?
Yeah, I think that's one of our biggest pushes right now is I need to make it clear, and I appreciate you asking that question and giving me the opportunity to speak to it, because we got inundated last night and this morning with emails because I think people think that we made the decision that we're not allowing spectators. Those are the governor's orders. We have to follow the governor's orders. So even though, we put that in the document, but I think people, and some sources portrayed it that was our decision. That has not changed since June 10th when we started allowing out-of-season workouts. The governor's orders for K through 12 were that they were to be limited to athletes, coaches, officials. So right now, that's unfortunately what we got to follow. We will continue to push and do our work to try to get spectators into watching these events. There's no question. I mean, I'm living, breathing example. I got 2 kids that are going to be juniors, and both are athletes. So, it hits near and dear to me as it does all these parents out there that want to see their seniors and their juniors and their kids play. So right now, that's a big one in front of us that we're really working hard with the governor's office. The one that is the most difficult is girls volleyball right now, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
Just because the indoor is limited to 25, and, between when you get 2 teams, maybe at least 2 coaches, and the officials and somebody at the table, you're there, and there's no room for anything else. And, it's really going to limit rosters and teams that travel. So we're working hard for girls volleyball, as we are for all the fall sports, and to try to get some movement to try to get spectators and get parents in. Even if it's one parent, whatever we got to do, we're going to try to make it happen. We really understand the importance of it.
Yeah.
But I just want to reiterate, that wasn't our decision. It's just that we have to follow it because that was put up by the governor's office.
This thing is pretty fresh. It's just out of the oven, this 24-page document issued yesterday,
Yes.
and folks are really getting their first real look at it. Have you heard anything from state officials or others in reaction to it?
Yes, we've we've gotten, I would honestly say most of the feedback we have gotten is positive. And I think when people really look at it and think of what, and you're watching a lot of the college conferences go down and, the struggles with professional sports, I think people, with common sense thinking, we're just appreciative that our kids can play sports. And that was our goal. Like, whatever we got to do to get kids playing is what we're going to do. So it is fresh out of the oven. It's a lot to digest. But, I for the most part, the feedback's been positive. Certainly we're getting pushback right now because of the issue with the spectators. But again, that's our hands are tied on that, unfortunately. And, we'll continue to work at it, as I said. But, we feel pretty comfortable with giving the flexibility to schools. We feel pretty comfortable that we're going to be able to get something going here for the fall. So
we'll look at how the state reacts to it, about how the state health department moving forward, whether it's in relation to PIAA or any other issues, new restrictions. We'll be concerned about red areas, yellow areas, green areas, and how PIAA reacts to all of that. But are there specific plans to get together again, or is it dependent upon when the governor or the health department issues something else that is going to directly impact this document issued yesterday?
No, we'll definitely be getting together again. In fact, we've kind of been working on a every 2-week, 3-week board meeting basis. And for those that don't know, typically in a year without COVID or a pandemic, our board only meets 6 times a year. But we've been meeting just about every 2 weeks now, just because, as you've seen, things change. Yeah, and what we think one day or 1 week could change in the next couple days or the next week or two. So we have another board meeting scheduled for August 26th. And at that time, based on information that we have, any new information or changes, we'll make sure that that gets out. And then we also plan to, at that point in time, look at making a decision on playoffs. Mm-hmm. We didn't make any decisions on that, any determinations on that yet. We feel like it's just too soon. And if we can have playoffs, we certainly want to have them. But at the same time, when we looked at the big picture, it was just more important to try to get a regular season started for these kids. So yes, to answer your question, that was a long-winded answer. We'll be doing this about every 2 weeks probably until we can feel like we're more on solid ground.
Which means I won't lose Melissa Mertz's phone number.
Which means we're going to be talking often.
Well,
we're going to be in your speed dial soon.
It works for me because we're getting some really great information from you. I want to thank you for joining us again today and making the time. Appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. You bet. Take care of yourself.
You too. Melissa, have a great day. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160.